Okay, so we are going to work through each of the questions from the practice test that relate to Packet 1. So this entire video will be questions related to Packet 1 to help you prepare for your Packet 1 quiz. So it says the expression is equivalent to, or which expression is equivalent to 3x squared plus 7x minus x plus 4 quantity squared minus 9. So if I'm going to simplify this, my first thing is to take care of this x plus 4 squared, which would mean I have 3x squared plus 7x minus, this is where I have x plus 4 times x plus 4. So I'm actually going to come up here to the top. X plus 4 squared is equal to x plus 4 times x plus 4. So x times x, x squared, plus 4x, outer, inner, plus 4x, last, plus 16, which gives me x squared plus 8x plus 16. So then I can fill that in. And then don't forget your minus 9 out here. Now, this negative has to distribute to every term within that because this negative is outside of that x plus 4. Sorry about that. So that gives me 3x squared plus 7x minus x squared minus 8x minus 16 minus 9. So now I can combine like terms. 3x squared minus x squared is 2x squared. 7x minus 8x is negative 1x. And negative 16 minus 9 is negative 25. So 2x squared minus x minus 25, which is D. Moving right along, the next one that applied to Packet 1 was question 4. Select the box that correctly identifies the only solution or the best description of how many solutions there are for each equation. All right, so if I were to solve this equation, we're going to have to take each one of these and solve them out. So I'm going to grab a piece of scratch paper to help us do that. So if I were to solve this first one, I have negative 7x minus 12 equals negative 7x minus 12 minus 3x, which means that my x's are going to have different coefficients because negative 7 minus 3 is negative 10x minus 12, which means it's going to have one solution. I can keep solving to see what that would be. Add 12, add 12. Well, my constants cancel out, which means I'm left with 0 over here, plus 10, x, and so that leaves me 3x equals 0. So x equals 0. So for this one, it would be x equals 0. For my second one, slide this over. That would be 8x plus 12 equals 5 plus 3 is 8x minus 6. Now I know I have the same 8x, so that means it's either infinite solutions or no solutions. If I subtract 8x, I get 12 equals negative 6. That's not true, so that is no solution. Let's go to this next one. I have negative 3 minus 3x when I distribute that 1/2, minus 2 when I distribute that 1/2 to the other one. Negative 1/4 times 8 is minus 2x. Negative 1/4 times 4 minus 1. So I have negative 3x minus 5 equals negative 2x minus 1. I add 2x to both sides. So that leaves me negative 1x minus 5 equals negative 1. Add 5 to both sides. Negative 1x equals 4. So x is equal to negative 4. So sorry that I keep going out of camera shot here. But to recap this part one more time, I add 5 to both sides. Negative 1x equals 4. I would divide both sides by negative 1 to get x equals negative 4. So that would be this one. So I'd be willing to bet this one was infinite solutions, but always double check, because if for some reason this one was something different, then you might need to go back and check somewhere else. So 3x minus 21 plus 12 equals 1/4 times 12 is 3x. 1/4 times negative 8 is minus 2, minus 7. 3x minus 9, because 21 minus 12 is 9. Negative because the 21 is bigger, equals 3x minus 9. This is the same thing on both sides. I could also prove it by subtracting 3x on both sides. And so negative 9 equals negative 9. True statement, so it is infinite solutions. Okay, moving right along. The next one that is on, or that is very similar to packet 1 would be question 7. Sam ran a distance represented by the expression 2x plus 12. Lee ran a distance represented by the expression 6x plus 36, which describes how the distance that Lee ran compares to the distance that Sam ran. So if I'm comparing 2x plus 12 and 6x plus 36, I know that if I multiply this by 3, then I get this. So that means that the distance that Lee ran is 3 times the distance that Sam ran. Okay, that one's not super complicated. It just kind of makes you think about the conceptual multiplication distributive property there. Okay, moving right along. The next one that applies is number 11. A recording studio charges musicians an initial fee of $60. Remember, initial fee, you're only going to pay that one time to record an album. Studio time costs an additional $75 per hour. Which function represents the total time in dollars, C of t, of recording an album as a function of studio time in t hours? So it's going to be C sub t equals the $75 per hour plus the initial fee of 60. We're adding to what they have to pay because it's total cost here. So that would be 75t plus 60, which would be D. Moving along, the next one that applies is 15. The formula for the volume of a cone is given. Which equation is solved for r, the radius of the base of the cone? So if I have this formula and I'm solving for r, then I could take this in multiple orders here. I'm going to start by multiplying by 3 to get rid of this 1/3 in the front. So I'm left with 3v equals pi r squared h. Now, all of this is being multiplied, and I want to get rid of the pi and the h, which means I could divide by them at the same time, because those cancel out and those cancel out. Then I could do that over here, which means I have 3v over pi h equals r squared. How do you get rid of a squared? The inverse of squaring is the square root. So that means that r is equal to the square root of 3v over pi h, which is D. Okay. Next, we have question 22. A cell phone company is offering a plan for unlimited talk and text with an additional charge for data that can be represented by the function C of g equals 14.99g plus 32, where C represents the cost in dollars and g represents the number of gigabytes of data. According to this model, fill in the blanks to correctly complete the sentence below. The cost of the plan for unlimited talk and text is blank, an additional cost of blank for each gigabyte of data. So we're taking this equation and we're breaking it up into the two parts. So the cost of the plan for unlimited talk and text is $32, that's the base cost, and then $14.99 for each additional gigabyte because that's my rate of change per gigabyte. Simple enough, right? All right, the next one is 24. Jasmine needs to solve the equation 9x plus 12 equals 3 times x minus 8, which equations represent the first step Jasmine could use to solve the original equation. So if I'm going to solve this equation, my first step would probably be to distribute the 3 on the right side of the equation. So distribute the 3 on the right side of the equation to get 9x plus 12 equals 3x minus 24. That would be that one. Now it is a select all that applies, so we need to check all the other options to see which one is viable. Jasmine, she's not going to distribute 3 on the left side because there's no 3 to distribute on the left side. Subtracts 12 from both sides of the equation to get 9x equals 3 times x minus 20. I can't put the 12 inside those parentheses until I clear up that multiplication. Subtracts 3 from both sides of the equation to get 9x plus 9 and then x plus 8. That wouldn't work because that's multiplying. Divides both sides of the equation by 12 to get 9x plus 1 equals 4 times x minus 8. That wouldn't work because the 9 divided by 12 would not be equivalent. Jasmine divides both sides of the equation by 3 to get 3x plus 4 equals x plus 8. That would work because I have 9x plus 12 equals 3 times x plus 8. If I divide by 3 over here, that cancels. And if I divide by 3 over here, I'm left with 3x plus 4 equals I wrote plus, minus 8. So that would give me A. So your correct answers there were A and F. All right, the next one related to packet 1 is question 27. Which expressions represent rational numbers? So remember, rational numbers are numbers that do not stop and do not repeat. Now, if we go through these, we could type each of these in our calculator to decide which ones will leave us with rational, but we know that if there's an irrational number anywhere in the multiplication, that it becomes an irrational number. If we multiply by irrational, it's going to be irrational. So this is irrational. Remember, non-perfect squares are irrational. So that's irrational. But we're squaring it. Sorry. So we're squaring it, which means that this is going to, the square root of 5 squared is 5, which becomes rational, times the square root of 16, which is 4 to the third. So that's all rational, so it's going to represent a rational number. Sorry about that. So if it's the square root of 5, but then it's squared, that kind of undoes it there. But if it's an irrational number and it's cubed, then that's going to stay irrational. Let me grab a calculator. So if we take a look at this second one, it is square root of 32 squared, which is going to be 32 times the square root of 2 to the third. Now, the square root of 2 to the third is going to be an irrational number because it doesn't undo that squared. But the square root of 2 to the fourth is going to be a rational number because it undoes it. So if it's to an odd power, then it stays irrational. Okay, so that one is not rational. Square root of 4 to the third, that's a 2, so that's 2 to the third is 8 plus 12, because square root of 12 squared is 20. So that is rational. Square root of 9 is 3 squared. Square root of 8 is irrational, and it's to the third, which means it stays irrational. So that one's not an answer choice. The square root of 0.65 is irrational. Therefore, this entire thing is irrational. Square root of 0.49 is rational, and then to the 0.5 power. So remember, 0.5 or to the 1/2 power is the same thing as a square root. So that's 1 divided by 25 to the 0.5 power is just 0.2, which is the same thing as 1/5. Okay, so this is like 0.7 plus 0.2, which is 0.9, which is a rational number. So that one should have been A, C, and F. Okay, 29. A local store ordered a shipment of video game systems. The store sells 30 systems weekly to customers. As a result, the number of systems in stock decreased to 190 the first week. Which statements correctly interpret the rate of change or the y-intercept of the given situation? Select all that apply. So if they sell 30 weekly, there are 30 systems sold each week. As a result, the number of systems in stock decreased to 190 in the first week. So there must have been 220 in the shipment originally because it decreased to 190, but they sold 30. So let's add those back in. That is 220, which means the correct equation is y equals negative 30x plus 220, which is E. So that should have been A, C, and E. All right, next one that applies is 33. Cars R Us rental charges a flat fee of $24 and an additional 0.35 for every mile the car is driven. Which function models the total cost C of X of renting a car for X miles? Okay, so flat fee of 24, that's my plus 24 at the end, 35 cents per mile. And so C of X equals 0.35x plus 24, which is B. The next one is question 43. A school has 124 students who want to take a new computer class. Each class can have a maximum of 18 students. Which inequality could be used to determine how many classes C need to be scheduled so that all students can take a class? So if we have the 124 students, we're going to divide that by the number of classes to get how many students are in each class. They can have a maximum of 18, which means it would have to be less than or equal to 18 students per class, which would give me A. Okay, the next one is question 45. What is the solution to this? So if we solve this, we have negative 18r. We distribute that negative 2. Minus 6 minus 7r is greater than or equal to negative 10r minus 12r minus 9. So then I'm combining like terms. Negative 18 minus 7 is negative 25. R minus 6 is greater than or equal to negative 10 minus 12, negative 22R minus 9. Add 22R to both sides. And that leaves me with negative 3R minus 6 is greater than or equal to negative 9. Add 6 to both sides. Negative 3R is greater than or equal to negative 3. Divide both sides by negative 3. R is greater than or equal to 1, which gives me D. Next one, question 48. We're almost there. The cost for bowling includes $4 for shoes and $4.75 for each game bowled, which equation represents the amount in dollars for X games bowled. So that would be Y equals $4.75 per game plus $4 for shoes, because that's an upfront, which would be D. All right, 55. Last question. So the formula for the surface area of a right triangular pyramid is given. Which equation is solved for P, the perimeter of the base of a right triangular pyramid? So I'm solving for P, so SA equals B plus 1/2 PL. So first thing I want to do is get that B out of the way. So I'm going to subtract B, subtract B. So I have SA minus B equals 1/2 PL. Now, if I'm trying to get P by itself, I have to multiply by 2 to get rid of this 1/2. When I do so, I'm multiplying this whole entire quantity by 2. Now, if I look at my answer choices, they do not distribute that 2, so I'm going to leave it out to the side. And so I'm left with 2 times SA minus B equals PL. This is being multiplied, so I divide by L. And there's your answer. P equals 2 times SA minus B over L. So that is B. All right, if you have any questions, let me know.